We may actually have to go live before we usually do, because it's like
we're live.
All right, so
I see it on YouTube.
there you go.
Okay.
Hello, everyone.
How's it going, guys?
Hi. Coming to you live from the car.
So we're live. Oh, Tony's in the car?
Tony's in the car. It's baseball practice tonight, buddy.
See, that's what that's what this show is all about. That's a good father right there. Top 5 shipper, Northern Indiana.
in only one poll.
We all know how it goes. Well, hey guys, great to have you guys on here. I've been wanting to get all three of you on a sales, and I think the big thing is with sales in our industry, especially, is just learning for people that are around you that do it well, because there's so many different ways to do it. Everybody's found their kind of way of doing it. I know that's kind of how I learned. I came in at a time when we were growing, and it was like a push phase, so it was very competitive here. It was sales, call, sales. Who's doing it this way? Hey, this worked. I did it this way. That worked. And so, the whole point of that is to bring people together, kind of get an idea of what everybody has done, what works for them, and then also kind of break it down into, segments in whether the market's up, the market's down, certain commodities, certain modes, LTL, truckload. So that's kind of where we're starting with today. But Nicole, if you want to lead off with the first, you're always good at the questions. If you want to lead off with what you think, what's on your mind, I told everybody we're just going to kind of do like a 2-minute response to each one, and we're going to keep the chat going and then see where it goes.
Well, first of all, thanks guys for joining us today. Very excited to have Trey back. What's up, Trey?
What's up?
We have Michael, which Michael's my buddy. So welcome. Really cool to see. And Jake, you're actually newly introduced to me. So welcome to
Love it.
now with
I'm
us
excited.
today. Yeah. So, usually when we start, we just go around and get some background on you guys. Would love to hear just a few minutes about, what you've done in your past and where you guys are today, and just let us know what's going on.
Cool.
Michael, lead us off, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Trey, you're at the tippy top for me. You're in the top left, so I would love to start.
I'm sure everybody on this, I can't see because I didn't log into the other thing, but probably already knows I talk so much on LinkedIn already. But my name's Mike Neme. I've been in the supply chain industry for going on 8 years. I live in Seattle now. I work for Global Trans, and I focus strictly on managed transportation. So we can talk about that for hours. What that is basically I'm handling your entire supply chain.
Very cool. Trey, I know you were on part of the show last week, but we'd love
Michael sells himself short a little bit. He's like the cold calling king. Like, he's the guy. If you want to learn about cold calling, he's the man. So he's not letting that on. But I gotta say that about him.
Well, we're hoping to talk about that today, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's the guy on that. So for me, it's like, what haven't I done? My career has been pretty crazy. I started out as a golf professional. Then I became a high school physics teacher. Then I became a youth pastor. Then middle school science and math while you're doing youth pastor. And then at the age of 32, I decided it'd be a good idea to get into door-to-door office supply sales with a bunch of 20-year-olds and learn how to sell some stuff. So I did it for 15 months, cut my teeth on that, learned how to talk to just about anybody from, the secretary to the doctors and lawyers. I remember closing a guy at a dentist office, sitting in a dental chair while he was working on a patient. And I was writing out, order for toner and paper and stuff like that. So did that, and then got into sales and transportation through DAT, just had a recruiter that got me into that. I've been in tech sales the majority of my 9 years in transportation. And now I'm doing more sales focused, sales in the sense of sales consulting, sales structure, providing lead generation resources and things like that.
Very cool.
Very nice.
Jake.
All right. What's going on? I am Jake Dunlap. I run a sales consulting and strategy company. I've been a sales leader and in sales for almost 17 years. I'm probably the lone non-career freight, or career, transportation person. We've worked with, Arrive, we've worked with Keep Trucking. And so we've got a lot of experience in this MV transportation. And, we do a lot of modern sales process optimization. So that could be everything from, how you think about acquiring new accounts to account growth. And so, I'm happy. I think I'll try to share kind of, I don't know, there's a lot of legacy, stuff in freight where people, this is just how it's done. And I think we've been able to prove in a lot of spaces, like, how you can modernize and turn a commodity sale into a value sale. So I'm happy to share some answers or insights into what we've done and our experience kind of across transportation and how it's actually like a lot of other, sales processes too.
Well, I tell my entire team, and it's been part of my career, that no matter what role, what title you have, you are sales. If you're a stay-at-home mom, you're part of sales. If you
That's
are
right.
at the grocery store trying to get your breadcrumbs off that top shelf and someone's helping you, you are in sales. It does not matter what you do for a living. Sales is part of what we do with negotiating when we buy a home. I mean, it's just every single thing we touch. So it's always an awesome topic to bring, especially with, professionals like you guys, bringing in different viewpoints. I know Michael probably will align with Jake very well because it's a non-traditional approach that is working. And I think that's what people are kind of clamoring for, is this break through the clutter type of things, So I would love to hear more in regards to different tactics that you guys are doing to break through some of that clutter. I know for myself, my background has been predominantly sales, operations, and even running a company and leading people. You're selling to them why they should believe in your values and your mission. So again, like I keep saying, it just touches everything from start to finish in a company, but also in our everyday lives. So,
And I think
leadership is sales too.
yeah,
everything is sales, but when you're good at sales, that's when you get your kids to do what you want them to do. You get the breadcrumbs down faster, easier.
You figure that out, TJ. You let me know. And
There's a little difference. So, well, you could sell to your kids, and then your wife deals with the repercussions if not. But no, I think, and let's go around. Me, Nicole, and Tony. Let's talk a little bit about Nicole. Talk a little bit about your background in sales too, and then I'll go, and then Tony as well, on what he's experienced too as we move in, because I'd like to keep this a discussion with everybody. Because there's just so many different backgrounds, I guess.
Yeah. Well, for myself, I started off in an operational background, which I think is a great thing to do. When you start understanding how everything works from process, you develop this sense of appreciation for what goes on behind the scenes when you're selling something. So understanding that start to finish is always a great way to hit the ground running. So I had several years of doing that on the brokerage side for truckload and expedite, and then was put into a sales position. And I think, like everyone who gets into a sales position for their first gig, they're like, this is going to be easy. I can do this. I can do this. And then you start dialing and you start making these calls, and, your boss is sitting next to you and listening to you. And it just creates that, I can't do this. And then you start learning your own sense of style and how you want to approach people. So you start, for me anyways, I was handed this tiny little script of paper. It had 4 lines on it. One was blank. It said, hello, my name is. And I had to read from this and just go through, I'm run an expedited company and would like to work with you. Can we set up a meeting? So it's just that very robotic feeling when you start. And I've watched other sales individuals just approach it completely different, and so from myself and my success on when I did start becoming who I was becoming who I was, owning that personality and talking to people as if they're humans too. And I started losing that salesy background to it, and then just started understanding how to solve problems for people and listening and, breaking through that way, and then sales became easy once I started having that confidence behind me in what I was selling, and that I really wasn't selling. It was me trying to walk into a room or make a phone call and talk to somebody and help them with a situation. So that is kind of carried on with me through the rest of my career. Now it's been more of strategic sales. So I don't do technically any cold calling sales anymore. It's more of introductions, referrals, relationship driven sales, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I'd say that's kind of how I started in dispatch, working with trucks, our assets here, backhauls and moving customer freight. And it gave me like a really good kind of idea of equipment, what drivers do, what they don't do. Had a lot of different types of shippers. So drop trailers, we were kind of in it. We're always been real innovative in what we come up with. So it kind of gave me that. And then when I got to some of the accounts that I had grown and got into brokerage, I was dispatching and brokering both because I had accounts and it was 2018. They needed help in 2017, I think. And like you said, you start to get that confidence and, you don't have to make, I remember when I first started, you'd make, a certain amount of calls in a row. And then the better I got at sales, the less calls I made. It was more strategic. It was, knowing certain ways to get a hold of people, going through our system, finding loads that we're already running and seeing where we're running them from. And, looking at that, looking at, different ways of doing things and what shippers do them that way. And it became a little bit easier. And again, we had a big push. So it was just there for a while. I mean, there was only basically 10 of us in an office, just grinding, hitting the phones. And it was I landed this account. No, you didn't. I landed that. That was my lead. And I was in contact with her first, and it became real, a group effort. And I think that helps quite a bit too, because you can bounce ideas off. You talk about, doing cold calls with a friend or something to practice, but a lot of what the strategies we were doing, we were practicing. I'd hear people say what worked and what didn't. So, having that operations background, Nicole, like you said, is huge because, you could sit in and talk about all the things that you can do, or you could talk about, dropping trailers and how they work and the strategies and all, I don't know, just all these different things that you can talk to a shipper about that they're a little more interested in than the usual, what everybody tells them. So I think it gives you more confidence, like you said, as well. So
Very nice.
Now,
all right, Tony.
Then selling on the broker side, then going back to the trucks is a lot easier to sell trucks. So
I'll bet. I've never had an official position in direct sales, but as private fleet operator in manufacturing, we are an extension of sales. We're the customer service order fulfillment portion of that sales in manufacturing and operations. So my experience with sales has been on the receiving end. I'm being sold or fulfilling the promise of sales. But I believe that leadership is truly sales. You're selling the company's culture, you're selling your leadership, you're selling the idea to everyone all the time. So that's my experience in sales.
Are you selling drivers on where they need to go?
Always.
That's what I think where you're selling.
People don't like certain loads. Sorry guys, this is the load that needs done. This is what's going to pay your mortgage next month.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge in dispatch too. I talk about, a broker selling a load to a carrier, but the when you have owner operators, the dispatcher selling a load to the driver. You got to have things lined up, broke down to the mile and how it's going to affect their paycheck and things like that, because they don't, they think for themselves. They're very opinionated, and some are really smart, some necessarily aren't, but if you lay it out for them, it's a lot easier while they're on the road busy. So that's a good point too.
All right. Next question, Nicole.
Well, I'm just excited. I want to hear more from Jake. I think I'm sorry, guys. I want to hear from Michael and from Trey too, but I want to hear something from Jake.
Yeah. Nicole, I'm with you. I want to hear from Jake. Let's go.
Super intriguing. Yeah. Tell us what it is when you're walking into these huge companies. I mean, these are decent sized freight companies, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, people are constantly going, well, you don't get it. This is freight. This is different.
Yeah.
So you're sitting down with CEOs, you're sitting down with sales directors. Like, what are you finding as problems, and how are you coaching them to tackle those things?
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's a few things. I think, if you look at other industries, freight and transportation is a little more relationship-y. It's a little bit more about those relationships, but it's not as much as you think. I think there's a massive fallacy, honestly, that like they gotta whatever. I think business owners, and especially small business owners, are focused on a few things: business and trust. And trust is built in a lot of different ways. And I'll tell you, whenever we go to some of these teams, and especially when it's people who've been in freight for forever, I think there's an over index on being likable and, well, Jake, look, I know Ben, and Ben likes to, everybody cares about one thing. They care about, and it could be different. They care about growing their business. They care about market share. They care about this. And I think there's a trust that you don't have to build by just being likable, by showing that you're an expert. Look, I know what it's like to move freight in the Southeast or the Pacific Northwest and how it's different. And I know that, this, and showing that you're an expert in their world and you can empathize because you're an expert at business and acumen. And I feel like that is one piece that when I look at sales teams, sometimes they're missing the business acumen. There's an over reliance on I'm likable and whatever versus like, look, TJ, I hope we can have a beer together. But at the end of the day, you're going to work with me because I'm going to help you with your 2 top priorities for 2021, which is growing business and taking market share from your competition from these 3 folks. And so I feel like that's maybe the biggest disconnect I see. When we go into these teams, that there's an overly belief in the relationship building and being likable versus business acumen and understanding the challenges of a small business versus medium broker and, those things. So that would be, I think, maybe some of the nuances I see on like gaps between maybe a traditional sale and, when you get into transportation, is there's almost a predisposition to want to focus on the relationship. So I'm sure I'll go into that deeper, but that would maybe be this insight, that I've seen across these teams.
And I completely agree with that. And I've seen it as because the transportation side, especially at a shipper, it's so layered sometimes. When I'm talking with a head of procurement, I'm talking a lot different than when I'm talking with an account manager or the load planner. And so I think the relationship is huge and a lot more important with those load planners, the people you're dealing with day to day, and people you can get more freight from, because there's that other sales side too, that I'm in with a big company. I know they got more freight. How do I get to it? Now you're navigating sales that way. But there's also, when I'm on the phone with, a head of procurement or something different like that, it is a more of a, this is what we're going to do. This is what we can do. This is how I'm going to do it. This compared to, how was your weekend?
That's so great because you're adapting communication to the group. And then I think the other thing is it's why you don't get to talk to the CEO. It's why you're not talking to the head of logistics for Swift. You're talking to the operations manager because you don't sound like someone who deserves to talk to the VP of logistics because you're talking about we can save you 15 cents or whatever it is, Mariah, and you're not talking about strategy. This logistics is thinking about the price of fuel in May of 2021, and they're thinking about these other things. And I feel like that's a big gap that I see, especially in strategic accounts, is like you hit it on the head, TJ, ability to adapt your communication based on what you think they're going to care about, both at the executive level and then at each layer down, especially like Nicole, you mentioned, I know you work on big accounts, that becomes even more complicated.
Well, that's why I keep smiling. I'm thinking about Michael. Like everything that Jake is saying, I'm going, Michael.
I say the same thing.
We keep watching these videos.
Yeah. So Jake, you hit it right on the head. I actually said, I think I posted a post about this, but dude, I am not the most logistic guru, right? I got people for that. I focus mainly on business and how things in the supply chain are going to financially impact that, executive, that CEO's company versus how many miles per the gallon a 53 footer gets. He don't give a shit. He wants to know how he's going to increase, his gross margins and mitigate risk. That's where I'm thinking. That's where my head is really thinking about it. So,
yeah.
But that I think Michael, you're a good example of it too. But that comes with just experience of being out in front of people. So when you're only used to talking to load planners and knowing that's how you sell. Yeah. And until I got dragged out on some sales trips back in the day to meet some of these big, bigger heads and leaders, that's when I kind of got to where it was like, this is a totally, and then you also kind of realize they're all human. And I think that's what gives you confidence. When you first get in the industry, you think they've got all these loads and they're dealing with millions of dollars worth of freight and because they could be a little pushy or whatever it is. Now, like, I'm not gonna say, but I push back. I mean, not push back, but you stand your ground. You're confident. You're like, hey, I'm confident. This is what I'm seeing here.
So,
and I think that gives you that ability then to talk differently with someone at the top compared to someone you're dealing with on a daily basis. And Michael, that's what I'm saying. You're constantly out in front of, how many times have you been on a phone with a CEO and whatnot, and you just learn, hey, the first couple of times you stumble through it and then you just realize, wow, this is what this guy wants to talk about. And that's it.
Yeah.
So I got lucky though. So I'll say it like, so, most people in this industry, I've Worldwide Express, I say it all the time. They have the most dominant sales training there is out there. And it was, as soon as I started my career, it was business to business, cold calling 60 doors a day. And we were going in and asking for the owner. And that is like, it's like, that's what I learned. You have to ask for the owner. You have to think like a business person versus a person. We never, sorry, Tony, but it was just like, hey, we never, the shipper's not making that call. You're meeting with the owner, you're meeting with the CFO, maybe a controller, but it's got to be top level. And that's like, you do that for 8 years, it just becomes, I guess, natural.
Right. Right. And Trey, that has to be for you too. I mean, the services that you're selling as of today, those business owners are making those decisions, those CEOs, those directors, right?
Yeah, specifically lean. I mean, it's strategic to the growth of their organization. So it's definitely top level. But I always think of like this. I think about somebody maybe who is hearing this and going, how do I get to that place where I could talk to somebody that's higher up? Here's my suggestion. It's take every meeting you can and every opportunity to be with people who make you uncomfortable. If you're comfortable in every conversation, you're probably not pushing yourself to talk to people who are higher up. And so that would be my encouragement, is to always try to put yourself in an uncomfortable group of people that make you think, and you're going to, like Michael said, you're going to stumble through it, you're going to make mistakes, but then you'll figure that out. So I think that's really important. But I want to go back to something that Jake said earlier. He talked about the distinction between trust and likability, because I took a poll recently and I asked the people in my network, what's the most important part of a sale? And of the 4 options, 7 out of 10 said building trust. But it also, but my thing said building trust / relationship. And I think that a lot of times people put those two things together, and they're both important, but there's a difference between trust, being an expert, people knowing that you're going to be able to handle their business and what they need, and being likable, being able to go out and have a beer and have a good time. Ideally, you want both. But I think trust is the winner of those two, because trust means that they can count on you. I think people would rather say, I trust them, even though I'm probably not going to hang out with them, versus I want to hang out with them, but I don't trust them. Like, this person's going to get it. This person's not going to get the business. So I think that was a really good distinction that you made, that we really promote ourselves and become an expert and communicate that way to them and build that trust. And the relationship part of it is just the icing on the cake.
I struggled with that in the beginning, Trey. So it's funny you say that. I was striving to be likable. I'd get a bunch of meetings, right, with CEOs, and they liked me, but I remember having that conversation early on with my manager. He's like, dude, they don't trust you. They like you and all that, but why aren't you getting the business? And it was more or less like, dude, you're a likable person, but put that aside, bring some value to the table.
Yes.
And then, dude, then they're going to like you regardless. Or even if they don't, go get it.
Yeah, here's a real simple formula that I've just used, and I didn't come up with it, but I try to sandwich all of my conversations. It's just think of like a sandwich. The first 5 minutes, I want to talk about something that doesn't have much to do with what we're going to talk about business-wise, because I want to make a connection. So I find out if they're from if I'm talking to Jake, we're going to talk Chiefs because we're both from Kansas City. We're going to talk high school.
Why is everyone from Kansas City when I'm on a call with you?
Because I'm telling you, those people are legit, man. Those people know what's up. Kansas City is a secret, but so I try to have the first part of it be that relationship part, but then that middle portion, the meat of it, I have to be an expert for them. I have to come across knowing their business and knowing how my offering is going to impact their business. And then the last 5 minutes, I end the call talking about something else that is relationships. So that's how I try to mirror the two, because I think they're important. But the middle part is what actually matters. If you don't have the meat, if you're not an expert, you're not communicating that way, then you're just a nice guy. You're just somebody that people are going to say hi to at a trade show. They're going to like your stuff on LinkedIn, but they're probably not going to do business with you.
So here's my next question for everybody. You are going in to see a CEO. You are going into a higher level person, right? And they are getting bombarded and constantly emails, this. And they don't really know your business. They don't really know that piece of their business per se. How are you bringing that to them to explain and to get them to understand what it is that you're truly selling in a quick minute, and to get them to trust you? Because for myself, like, I get constantly bombarded. Like, would you like to rebuild your website? Would you like this? Would you like that? And consultants are a constant that come to me, right? I don't trust any of them. I'm thinking, what? So the only way I was able to trust one was to have a recommendation of one. And I went, okay, I need to open up to this concept because I do need this type of service. And I only did that due to a referral. So think of all of the things that we're coming at people with. How do you break through that and get them to understand your service and trust you in a very short period of time when it's not their everyday?
It starts with something that if you could touch on something that's already on their mind, something that they've been dealing with, and it takes research, right? If you go in with something, and like Michael said, that's where calling the shippers directly is actually a pretty good strategy. I've done that before where I'll talk with them and make a relationship and have an idea. They'll tell me the pain points right away because they're down there in the warehouse, and I'll have an idea of what they're doing and what they're running into and some struggles. It won't even be a sales call, literally just be to talk to them and see what they're running into and how their operation's going. I may say sometimes that I'm looking to get into shipping. What would you suggest? Or, and then they start to come out with stuff. But now I'm going into it with hey, Jake, I know you're dealing with, especially in the Midwest, some capacity issues there. I'm not sure exactly how you're loading your trailers, but, things like that can get their attention right off the bat, whether it's a call or an email in the subject line. It's always, I think, a attention getter compared to just being white noise.
So Nicole, I'm basically, if you want it real quick, I'm calling accounts payable. I'm calling finance people, right? Because I want to know what they're doing from a financial standpoint, right? And let's just use this as an example. Call a controller. Hey, how are you allocating your transportation spend into your pricing model? Well, we just do it by a flat rate of 10%. We don't have any kind of cost to serve by product, by customer, by location. They're losing money, trust me. So right after that call, I'm going to call the CFO and say, hey, listen, I spoke with Carol, your controller. She's just literally, guesstimating on, the transportation cost and passing it through into the pricing model. Do you know the financial impact that's having on your company? Oh, by the way, my name's Mike and I'm with Global Trans.
Michael, I have to comment on that. We talked, gosh, what was it? We probably talked 2 months ago and you were sharing that concept with me. And that's the first time that I heard somebody take that approach of you're doing the research, not from like LinkedIn, not from their website. You're calling their people and asking questions so that when you do talk to the CEO, you're like, yeah, Carol told me. And the CEO's probably like, you talked to Carol? Like what?
And I'm saying it like in this industry,
powerful.
Trey, like, I know you say you get blown up, but it's like, yeah, you probably do. But when someone calls you out of that and then throws that at you, like, I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I don't think anybody is really calling C-level executives in my industry. Very few, and very few even do that to the point where it's like, hey, listen, I talk to your controller. You're not even really allocating your transportation into your pricing model. Like that's a huge thing. Like, I mean, forget the freight rates, guys. It's like, oh, look at that. And I was able to increase their gross margins by 10 to 15%. Who cares about a couple dollars?
Yeah, and I would say this. I think that prospects can tell right away if you're worth their time based on your approach and the questions you ask. Yep. And Michael, I love your approach. I love what you do with that. I think that is so genius to dig into their own company, to research them, and then to go at them with the problem that exists. You're not making it up. It's not like 7 out of 10, brokers have this issue. No, you're saying, hey, I found out that you're having this issue. So your approach is so specific and so detailed. I absolutely love it. I think it is genius. So kudos to you. That
extends a level of trust also, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You're building that trust by showing them a problem.
Unless somebody doesn't like you digging around in their accounting department.
Well, no, and here's the thing on that though. It's like, yeah, to me, yeah, it's valuable. To anybody if you've heard it, but it's like, at least I did my part, right? I always say it's like, and that's the thing is, I'll get the meeting. Now it's just like, okay, how big of an issue is this to that CEO, right? And maybe it's not worth his time to go even further, but that's fine. But at least he knows, right? And I think that right there, though, has served me well because maybe it didn't go anywhere, right when I wanted it to. But who do you think he's going to pick up or she's going to pick up the call the next time I call and say, hey, you're looking to, take a look at this thing again? So
I got a question for you, Michael. How often do you find that they don't know that?
A lot.
All the time, isn't it?
Dude, it is insane, dude. Like, I mean, probably 95% of companies don't really know, exactly what their key cost drivers are at all.
Absolutely.
And even big companies. Like, and it's funny if you get if you want to rant, but I was like, when I started getting into enterprise level, I was like, holy shit, this is just the same thing as smaller companies, but even
with more zeros.
bigger.
For me, I mean, being in the expedited field, what I come across is a lot of companies don't educate their salespeople properly. So they're making commitments to their customers on service, getting there on time, product being delivered, and it's not built in. Like nothing is built in. I'm just going ship this, ship this, ship this. And so I always offer to an executive is let's pull back those layers. Let's look and see. Because I call someone and they'll go, we don't expedite. I'm like, oh, you do. You just don't know it. Because things get all folded into different layers and paid with American Express. And I mean, you name it, it happens to cover up. Because I'm the mistake cleaner upper, I guess you could say, right? So no one wants to admit that there's some sort of mistake. So it's identifying what those things are and actually showing an executive on how to actually bring those costs in, understand what they are and how to limit those. And
let me give you a tip on that, Michael, especially this will help you. Find out their sales pay structure. I've seen companies that pay sales on top line and on margin. The guys who are paying on margin care about transportation costs. The guys that are on top line don't care about transportation costs. Find out what's important.
It's funny you say that is, so that's like, but like Tony, it's not like I don't want to call transportation, but like, let's face it, you get blown up all the time. The chances of me catching you is like, dude, fuck off. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, I'll go to sales next, and it's like, yo, is transportation affecting, your paycheck? And it's like, well, yeah. Bottom line is this: I think all departments, and sometimes I probably think I come off like I don't care about, like I want to know the detailed shit with a shipper, right? More than I could ever know about the granular stuff in the weeds. But I think that where it starts is, and it's a lack of from leadership even getting involved, right? It's like they're the ones that are like leading the company. And if you don't think that, supply chain, operations, distribution, transportation is it's a top 5 P&L. You should be getting everybody involved in building the strategy and having the voice to all departments because it is affecting every department. And you think Tony wants to pick up the fucking phone? And I see sorry, I'm swearing, but it's like I get really into this because it's like I don't even think the shipper wants. I don't think Tony wakes up and says, "Hey, I want to get tons of calls. I want to book with 1 million fucking people, but this is what I have to do because my leadership doesn't want to streamline this process and make all departments talk together and communicate so we can actually have a efficient process all around." So.
Happens all the time. I see it all the time.
That's a great point, Tony. That's another good way to get in and find the right person to talk to, whether it is leadership, because we all know a lot of times you see leadership or the owners or people at the top are a lot more closer and know a lot more what their salespeople are doing because they're the ones making the money, right? They're bringing in they're seeing their numbers. So I had this thing I did one time and it worked somehow where I couldn't get through to the shipper. It was just bugging me. It was like a personal thing to this account. And I finally went on their website and went down to the bottom where you could like ask a question. And I just put in there that, hey, I'm trying to get a hold of your logistics department. I've got something pressing. I've lost the emails on that. Can you help me out? Sure enough, they like gave me the emails, like the people in the logistics department. So I tried it again, like recently, and a sales guy called me. And he's like, hey, giving you a call, my customer service said to give you a call. And I said, he said, I'm in sales. And I immediately just was like, I said, you know how it is then. I said, I was trying to reach to see if we get set up. He's like, oh yeah, I get it. And just trying to relate it with him. And I'm like, hey, I tell you what, if you can help me, I work with a lot of different people and things that could maybe help you out. If you could give me an idea of what leads you're looking for, if you could help me out with just get me in contact with some, and sure enough, he did. It didn't end up like being a very good fit at all. Didn't do my research on that one, but I did figure it out that works sometimes, just a shot in the dark. But the salespeople do have a lot more connection with everything that's going on and leadership all the way down to the shipper because that communication's there.
They're plugged in and they know what they need.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jake, I asked that question. You haven't had a chance to jump in because you have all these freight people just.
No, I love it. I think they're hitting on the right stuff.
Let's hear some of your viewpoints in regards to that main question that I had asked on all this
Getting
information
at the
flying.
top.
What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I really think, Michael, that the theme I would say is that to get in front of you, or, anybody, there's a level of specificity to their business that's lacking in probably 98% of the cold calls and emails. That they are a generic value prop versus saying, again, like, hey, I work with very specifically, small business LTLs in Portland, and I know XYZ, XYZ about this, I think it can make sense for us to connect. If anything, this would be a competitive analysis for you to see what other people are doing. That's interesting. I just feel like there's a lack of, and that's industry. That's not even something I know about you. If they're publicly traded, have you ever looked at their, annual report? Look at their quarterly reports. If they're not, have you read their website and have you seen what their focus on, their mission and values? There's so many different ways, I think, to cut through that I feel like there's just a level of detail that just shows I did a little bit of homework. Look at Michael. Michael did 15 minutes. I could go on your website and do it, 20, 30. So I would say that, and you guys have echoed some of that. There's that specificity. The thing that there's another trend that I think is interesting about once you get your foot in the deal that TJ talked about, and there's been themes of it, that it's your job to coordinate across departments in midsize and bigger. If I talk to a small business owner, it actually doesn't matter. That how I'm going to end that call is to say, and the best part, Michael, is next steps is usually what I'll do is I'll set up a quick conversation with your controller. I'll walk them through a high level. We'll see if there's an opportunity here. If we feel like there is, I'm going to set up a meeting with you and your CFO for maybe 2.5 weeks from now, walk you through the areas of opportunity. If that feels good, then we'll talk about what a proof of concept might look like. Does that work for you, Rick? You have to take control, and that's at a small company, but at a big company, there's so many moving pieces. And a guy like Tony doesn't have time to take on other projects. So if I do a call with Tony, I say, Tony, so here's next steps. Because I already know what needs to happen. I know the people that are going to need to be involved. So that would be the other thing, is that I feel like too often you try to make up champions and things like that versus you got to do the work and you need to coordinate. And Tony, someone like Tony, if you're executive, you hear me say that and you go, thank God, like not another project that I got to take on. This salesperson's going to take on the project. So that would be the only thing I'd add that we haven't, is that you've got to be in these big deals, a coordinator. Who needs to be involved. The order of operations, and just you've got to be more confident in that. And an executive, and I think what happens is salespeople are nervous because that sounds like you're telling an executive, but it's actually the opposite. And just think about all of you who are mid-level or managers or your different roles. How much would you love that if one of your direct reports came, hey, Jake, here's the next steps. I'm going to take this. I'm going to send you a recap. I'm going to do this. You're just like, what did you just say? Oh my God, I love you. Right. And the same things for big companies. So it's about being confident. I'm going to project manage this. I got this. This is not another project for you. That's what you lose. You lose to no decision more than anything. You lose to I've got 75 priorities. I can't afford to take on another project. So that would be my more mid funnel, is when you get in a deal, you got to talk about the project management stuff early, the implementation, how you're going to work together and how you're going to do the work and show the players very, very early. And I think too many people, they don't talk about it because it's not sales related. So that would be, I think, the only thing I'd add outside of what these guys have hit on.
That's
Jake,
a key point.
I want to comment on that for just a second. I want to say it differently. Salespeople expect their prospect to do the sale for them. And they're afraid to take charge. They're afraid to take control because they don't know how, and this goes back to your original point, they don't know how to speak to those leaders. They're not considering themselves as a leader. I mean, I think about it with my family, with my kids. If my 12-year-old came and said, Dad, we have this issue in the backyard, I'm going to go take care of it. I just want to let you know about it. Oh my gosh, I'd be like, this is the greatest kid in the world. I mean, that's what we all want for our kids. But instead, our kids kind of want us to do the work. And that's kind of how it is with salespeople. They want the prospect to do all the work instead of doing the work and taking charge. And I think that really smart people want other smart people to recognize the problem and solve the problem. Right? They don't want to get dragged into solving the problem. They want people to handle it. I'm still waiting for my T-shirt, by the way. Get your guy off vacation and get that over here.
They're in.
I think it's all about expediting the process. And to Jake's point, where it's you have to, and I'm not saying I'm perfect, because again, dude, even it's just having practice about it. But it was more or less, I actually posted a video the other day about it wasn't, I mean, it was a decent, actually, it was probably a little higher than mid-level sale, but I met with the founder and it was more or less like this process, or we were able to meet on a Thursday and sell the deal on a Wednesday because it was like, this is what I need from you. This is who I need to talk to. I need to talk to this person, this person, this person. And they were able to say, hey, listen, Cheryl, Stacy, Tom, Michael is going to reach out, schedule 20 minutes with him. He needs to ask these certain questions. I had literally a year's worth of data in front of me because that's what I needed to do to give them a proposal. And it literally saved so much time. And it was like the buying experience, I think, is like, that's the biggest thing. Is it's like, I'll take this, I'll take it on. I'll take your meeting if you can make the buying experience seamless and as seamless as you can. And I think
amen, brother. Let me tell you a secret, guys. Guys like me on the front lines that are managing a dock team and CDL guys and distribution on 2 different shifts all over the place, we don't have time to go vet carriers. I don't have time to listen to your proposal. I don't care. But if my corporate director comes to me with, hey guys, here's 4 new carriers, new options. I know you're struggling to get these loads moved with this tight capacity. Here's 4 new options for you that you didn't have last week. I'm buying him lunch.
Well, thank you for this. Thank you, Tony. Thank you.
That's what we want.
Let the executives handle all the bullshit. You are actually doing the work. You don't have for that.
So another question, I'm going to do a role playing scenario and I want to hear from you guys because we're already getting close to our time. It's 6
Crazy.
Right, it's so fast. So I'm going to start with Jake, okay? Say a person has sold an account, customer is committed to signing contract, going forward, meeting, everything looks good, blah, blah, blah. Suddenly, ghosting. Okay? So
That never happens.
Right. What do you suggest, Jake, when something seems right, everything's going forward? You know, the sales rep feels good, executives have been involved, and then all of a sudden you have no traction. How do you guide people to take the next step from the sales approach?
All right. So first I'm going to give you some tactics to make sure it doesn't happen, because I think that's the thing with ghosting is that, you know, it's about, do I want to fix your broken arm or tell you how to put a splint on, right? I'm going to tell you how to put the splint on too, but I'm going to start with how to fix the broken arm, which is stopping people from ghosting. The first things is you have to talk about the next 3 to 6 months of the partnership before you ever go forward, and get every meeting on the books before, like right as the deal's getting signed. If what you do is I go to Nicole and I say, all right, Nicole, so this is great. So here we're working on the contract. Here are next steps. We're going to put a time block on the calendar for this. I'm going to loop in so-and-so, and I'm going to loop in my team. Here's this. In 2 weeks, we're going to have this meeting. In 6 weeks, we're going to have this. If you put people in a process early, it happens a lot less. So that would be my very first thing is you got to try to think about why it's happening. Why is this happening? And it's because you're not putting them in the process early. So you can stop the bleeding or stop the broken arm from ever happening if you just assume like a move forward. The second thing is, again, if you're doing in some of these, are you doing like a proof of concept, or we're going to start with 5, you know, like, is that another scenario here we're talking about where you're going to start with a smaller deal?
Sure. I mean, I'm just coming up with a concept for a general sales situation.
And in those situations, let's say it's having very clear KPIs for success up front. What I feel like is a lot of times you sign, you know, you're so eager to get that contract signed that you don't say, look, I'm not moving forward with this. Here are our KPIs for success. Over the next 6 weeks, we're trying to prove these 3 things. Let's not even move forward if we're not ready to go forward. Let's not, hey, look, you know, Tony, I'd love to work with you in the team. Here's what's going to happen over the next 8 weeks. We're trying to prove these things. Let's not, and if we are successful, then we're going to go to 30 trucks. Are you good with that, Tony? Because guess what? I'm not trying to get a proof of concept. I don't even want to do I don't want to do a test run with him. I want to make sure, look, Tony, if I can prove value, you're going to give me more market share here. So I feel like there's just some tough conversations that people avoid when the contract's getting signed, putting people in the process, talking about very, very structured with the POC. So that's how you stop it from happening. When it doesn't happen, I'm going to give you a few techniques too, right? 1, video. Video is a really great. I'll maybe send you a video message on your phone. Maybe I'll text you, right? Maybe I'll try to do something. I'll tell because a lot of this is text, right? I'll email you a video. Hey, what's going on, John? I'm really looking forward to this. I've looped in 2 or 3 other people from my team. Let me know if we're still good to go. It makes a very personal connection. So a video, the second thing is you got to remove guilt. And what I mean by that is if they haven't talked to you in 2 weeks, it's like that aunt that calls you and leaves you a voicemail. And you're like, shit, I got to call. It's that relative who calls you and you put it off. And so what happens is they get that guilt too. So what I'll do is I'll hit them up and I'll apologize to them. I'll say, Danny, look, hey, I apologize, man. I was on site with this customer. I was out mid last week. I apologize. I want to get this back on track. Here's why we decided to partner. I'm gonna send you a calendar invite. I'm gonna be assumptive for Tuesday morning, and let's talk about going live. So I try to remove that guilt. Hey, look, I've been busy. It's like you go on a first date with a girl, she ghosts you. And then if you keep following up and you're all desperate and shit, versus you say, hey, I apologize. Look, I've been out of town. Immediately she's like, what? I thought I was ghosting him. And so you got to remove that guilt. And so those are techniques that I've used. I just video's a newer platform. And I've seen a lot of traction from sending a personalized video to where people are like, hey, Tony, again, I'm trying to get back on. Hey, Tony, look, man, I've been out for a few weeks. This is my bad. And Tony's like, oh, yeah, that's fine. It's no big deal. Look, I'm going to send you an invite for Tuesday. We're excited. Here's why. Like, Tony, what if somebody sent you something like that? What would you feel? I mean, like, put yourself
2 weeks ago was yesterday. You might as well just, it's.
So that's
awesome.
So video, I love, and then remove guilt. Those are the best things once someone's ghost. And then second piece is stop the ghosting from ever happening.
This is people done up is so good.
That is really good.
Great. What do you have on top of that? I don't know. That was awesome.
Do you add people into the because I've always found if it's like one-on-one, if they're ghosting you, kind of like adding, I know you're busy. I think you mentioned you had some stuff coming up here. I'm adding in, and you add other people into whether it is, and that's kind of like a natural guilt. You're being cool about it, but it's kind of like if a girl on a date just ghosted you and then you add her friend in and say, hey, what's going on? She's most likely going to be like, oh, maybe I should respond.
That's step 2. Yeah, that's what I'll do. TJ, if that doesn't work, then I'll loop in the other people. So I'll kind of give them the opportunity. And then I'll, if it doesn't, if I don't hear from them in another like 4 or 5 days, then I would loop in, or I just send a message without them on it. Hey, what's going on? I know Tony's been busy.
Oh, there you go.
You and I talked, and because that I don't know. I've seen that both work. And then other times, it's like, dude, I've just been busy, chill, TJ. So that's kind of step 2 or maybe step 3.
Any more, Trey? Do you have any other?
I told you that I was going to be taking notes and learning tonight as well. I got nothing else to add to that. That was genius. That was so good.
I just got to preach to Jake or pump him up. I've learned. It's funny is everything he just said, I do. Like, I mean, I've known Jake for like 2 years now, and I've always been pretty good at sales, and Jake has literally took my game to the next level, to the point where I was able to get a meeting with the CFO of Red Bull through LinkedIn because of a straight up video. And Jake preaches it, and I remember I didn't go all in on it until like a year maybe, and it has changed my. I mean, CFO of Red Bull. I'm talking to CFO. I don't know shit. This guy is smarter than me. Everything, but it was like, follow Jake seriously, and you know me. I'm not trying to
appreciate it, man.
I don't get nothing from you, but it's Jake. Literally, Jake, follow him. I don't care if we're in supply chain, and Jake never talks about that stuff in it, but he talks about sales, and I think that's where a lot of things are just missed. People don't know how to sell or how to even like go about business. They're so focused on like, oh, truck. Put that aside. Learn how to sell. Just build a brand.
No, I think video messaging is genius because people enjoy watching videos. It makes it personal and it differentiates. I mean, how many people are doing it? Most people don't do it, but I love it. I love it when I get a message from somebody who's chasing after me, who puts a video that has my name on it. You can tell that they took time to do it and send it to me directly. It's better than email. It's better than a text message. So I think it's genius. And I don't have anything else to add to it. That's perfect.
That's one thing I've never done. Are you sending those through? I mean,
LinkedIn, text message, LinkedIn, send them however you want, but it's a video. It's not a message.
There's a free service called Vidyard. You can check out Vidyard. You can use it for free too, and it'll make some stuff. But yeah, that's what a lot of people use too.
We'll send it through email.
Bomb's another one.
I've always been worried that if it goes through email, they're going to think, oh, this is spam. But I've never had any issues.
Every year on our spam filter would.
It doesn't. I mean,
email, honestly, I think LinkedIn is where it's at. Like,
Yeah.
LinkedIn, if you are connected with that person, and I'm just preaching what Jake preaches, if you are connected with that person on LinkedIn, dude, I think I actually counted on that, Jake. I was like, I think I'm maybe in the past maybe 60, 90 days have set 5 outreaches, like cold outreach emails. Everything has just been straight LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is so undervalued. Jake will preach this more than I will. But think about this. The 3 of us are on here. The 6 of us all are on here primarily because of LinkedIn and the power of it.
I mean, for me,
you know?
everybody that is on here is from LinkedIn, and it's from building those
I mean,
relationships.
I don't think I've ever been in the same room knowingly with any of you.
No,
but
we're all over the place.
I know.
Yeah.
Stupid
But I was
coronavirus.
thinking, you don't have to even use video just to close deals. It should be something I utilize it like this past year on our anniversary of our company. You know, I made messages directly for the impactful customers, you know, and sent those to the VPs and said, hey, thank you so much for your business. You know, it's companies like yours, and this is why, and we're able to be in business and blah, blah, blah. And it's
so different than
appreciated.
everything else they would get.
Yeah. And it's so appreciated. So it's a really cool way to break through and be sincere.
And one real quick, I wanted to talk on the market fluctuation. So I know just as an operations guy doing sales, it's something that's always kind of on my mind. I experience it daily. Guys, talk about from like a strict sale, like, you know, you talked about the sales side of it and working it that way and all the different strategies. How do you manipulate or change those, and how up to date are you on market fluctuations and what they're going to do to change maybe your approach and whatnot if you're not as involved, I guess, on the operations side?
Are we talking like rate or like just in general, like if
you're selling during March and April of this year compared to selling now?
Honestly, I mean, I'm pretty heavy on the LTL piece, but like I would be the worst person. Not even just heavy on LTL, but like I've never been affected really that hard on any type of, you know, obviously in the industry, you know, rates or, you know, just even the market, right?
Yeah,
I've never really felt that because it was more or less like, you know, looking at it from a high level and the key metrics that I sold the deal on that they're looking to see were adding up. So I will say though, I mean, there is a little bit of longer, I just had to hit on this because you guys talked about that LTL piece. I do see a little bit of that where there's going to be some missed pickups just because capacity is, I even hate saying that. I hate saying that, but like capacity is pretty tight when it comes to, you know, there's so much volume going out on the LTL piece that I got a pretty large customer that with one carrier that's on CSP, and they've had a couple missed pickups just because the fact that there's literally so much going out now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk this just briefly. I don't really sell to capacity or rates and that kind of thing because I'm not in that space. I don't really think that way. But it's literally the reason why I started the Word on the Street was just to have a pulse on what's happening in the marketplace and hear from people who know a lot more than I do. And so, you know, for me, TJ, it's really just staying, you know, kind of my ear to the ground and hearing what's happening and just being relevant, you know, so I know kind of what's going on. I know what the issues are, what people are facing, and then incorporating that into a pitch. But you know, business is business. People still want value. They still want, you know, great customer service. They want somebody who will handle it. Those things don't change whether the market's good or bad. Yep. And the one thing that I think I've seen through this year, because the market has changed so many times this year, more than most years, is if you can sell in any market, you start to understand and believe that sales is not dependent upon the market conditions. It's just not. You know, it's dependent upon what that customer needs and the value you can bring, regardless of what's happening. You know, so I just try to keep an ear to the ground. It's why I started those lunches on Friday. I'm just trying to hear from people smarter than me who know what's going on so that I can be relevant.
And I agree with that. I mean, at least for myself too, I've been in companies where 2008 struck and everyone's thinking mayhem. What are we doing in freight? Blah, blah, blah. What are we doing in the world? And we had record gross. I mean, consistent every year. And it was because of
mindset.
It's that mindset of just, you got to keep hustling. You got to keep going out there. You got to keep, you know, putting your line out there and trying to get what you can and develop those relationships, no matter if it's COVID or, you know, it's completely on the shipper side. It's just a constant and consistent reach out.
Winners win no matter what.
If
Yeah,
the market's,
say that.
if the economy's
Winners win no
bad
matter
and there's a couple that goes to a nice dinner every Friday night, they're not dropping that. They're still going to their nice dinner on Friday night. They're just not going to go to McDonald's on Wednesday and get that cheap cup of coffee on Tuesday. So you can either be the nice dinner or not. I think that's what gets you through the fluctuations. But Jake, I wanted you to touch on that too. I mean, I know obviously there's the difference in pain points, right? They're going to change with the market, but
Sure. Yeah, I mean, again, I think what I think about is if you asked me this question, I was selling into your space and this, I would probably, I've always been a fan. Like I'm naturally curious. So I know who my competition is. I know who your competition is most likely because I know about this. Again, I'm not a transportation person, but I know enough to talk to Michael about LTL. I can talk about these different because I'm curious. When I get into an industry and I was lucky when I was at Career Builder, we sold into and I had transportation. I got to learn. And the reason I'm bringing that up is, what I want to be able to do is be an expert for my client. So this might be a situation where I say, look, like say you're the client, TJ, look, you got a couple options here. There's this provider. And if right now, dude, you got to go cut by 5 or 10%, you might want to go talk to him. I think I'm going to be that guy for we're going to get back here. But if this is mission critical for you, for example, for us, when someone wants to talk to sales training versus consulting, I'm like, hey, if this is what you need and this is your budget, et cetera, I'm going to hook you up with these people, even though I could probably take down something, but I feel like, again, I'm in it for the long game. Nicole's talked about this kind of long game too. So I feel like if you know your market, your competition and what people are going through, and you're really a consultative, and I view my job as to help your business. I feel like that's something that a lot of salespeople are scared to do. And, Tony, I'd be curious to hear your take if one of your partners said that to you. Hey, like we're one of your carriers. Like if you need this, I would talk that. And then let's continue to do this. And I'd be scared to give up a little market share. So I'd be very careful about how I did this. But I don't know. That's always been my approach, man, is I want to help you. And I'm going to be smart, strategic about why I position it. It's very short time and those things. But that's what I've had success with.
Awesome.
Full circle. It comes back to trust. You do that, you might lose a little market share, but you build so much trust because they say, wow, this guy's really looking out for me. This guy knows people. He knows what I need. Yeah. He's helped me out. Even if he's not the one that can help me out, he's helping me out.
Yeah. That's and then huge. I can go to TJ. Hey, TJ, you're connected to these two people on LinkedIn, these other two target companies. Can you make a quick intro for me? I've just earned that relationship capital.
That's what happens.
That's right.
Yeah, relationships are built on trust.
People change businesses too, and then they get into a completely different industry, field, whatever role, and then they're back. It's like this constant cycle. And once you
and he'll never forget that. TJ will never forget that. If I go to him and I say, hey, you know what? Do you know these guys? He's like, no, I don't know them. Look, let me make a quick. He will never forget that. There's a time, and again, you're playing a long game, and I feel like too many people are so focused on right now, they're not thinking about it. I'm always playing I'm playing the short term. I need to get this done midterm and long term, just depending on what's happening in the deal. And I think we've created a culture sometimes it's too short term focused.
I just had that happen this past week. Let me tell you a quick example because I know we're bumping up against time. Our business is really trying to help people with staffing and building an organization with staffing solutions and sales and things like that. I was working with a guy who's just getting started, and in our conversations, turns out he doesn't have a TMS. He doesn't have some of these other things that are foundational that he needs before he needs me. Like he needs these things before he needs what I have to offer. So, in that moment, the best thing that I can do is just say, hey, let me help you. Let me connect you with Tim over to Send TMS, or let me connect you with somebody here or there to help you get that piece set up. And then we'll circle back around. That guy is never going to forget that. I'm confident of that. Even if, we don't do a lot of business, he's never going to forget that. Especially if his business grow. You know who I'm talking about?
We didn't hear that. What'd you say, Michael?
Oh, I was like, I feel like I know exactly who he's talking about.
All right, well, we'll just leave it there.
Tim, hey, real quick, though, Tim was a savage. Did you see what I met Tim through Trey. Did you see what he put? So on our CEO's thing, he goes, Michael should take over as CEO. The dude is a nut.
Oh yeah, he has no shame. I actually love when I get into conversations with him and he comments. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be good.
Literally, I actually respect him. He literally he'll give me so much credit, then he'll be like, but Tim from the TMS, and he'll tag his thing in my post, and I'm just like. I was like, I actually don't even care. I appreciate that. I don't know.
Well,
if you're not connected to these people, connect with them on LinkedIn. Follow these people. Yep. These are smart people, and you can learn from them every day.
And be willing to meet with people like Michael. I still remember like back in I don't know, April, March, something like that. You had put out I had no idea who you were. We weren't even connected at that time. You were connected with somebody else, and you put out a tape of a cold call. And listen, I used to do cold calls. And I still feel like I get on and do them well. And I was like, holy shit, this dude nailed it. And I like commented on it, like,
king.
I'm like, dude, you killed that, dude. That's great. You're like, thanks, brother. You're like, thanks, brother. What's up, man? Like, you're the best, bro. And like added me on, and I was like, this guy's cool.
Yeah, human. He has that human element that I think a lot of people.
But he put it out there. Nobody puts that out there.
No, Michael Neme's a machine. He's a
ballsy man. Ballsy. Well, you
Trey,
guys, you're
guys, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you, Jake.
Thanks for having us.
I want you to give me your information so I can post it, because I like to share a lot of things after our conversation so people can start following you and see what you have going on. I know you can spread some goodness to the salespeople in the world that we support with.
Can you even accept any more followers?
Huh?
Can you even accept any more followers?
Yeah, I can set followers. Yeah, you can follow me.
Hey, I just found it this week.
Go to LinkedIn. It's Jake Dunlap. Check out. I put out a lot of tactical stuff on YouTube too. It's Jake Dunlap Sales. Just Google that. I've got like 300 videos on like just sales. You know, again, I try to do a good mix of both strategy, but very tactical stuff. Like I built my whole sales career copying and pasting other people's shit. So, you know, like I learned from other people. I'm like, hey, he's been doing this for 10 years. I'll just do that thing. And so
that's right.
I encourage everyone
under the sun
to rip off.
I will share your link. I will share your link when we share the post. So thank you guys so much for coming on our show once again. Appreciate all of you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Follow Jake.
There we go.
And Michael.